Hello and welcome to the video. This is my overview and review of this thing here. This is the new Rekon4 FR. Now this is one of the new quadcopters from Rekon FPV, and if you've been watching the channel for a long time you'll have seen me already have a look at the Rekon 3, the other version of the Rekon 4, because yes, there's two versions of this, but more about that in a second. The Rekon 5, which I absolutely love, and then also the Rekon 6. Now the Rekon 5 is my favourite, with probably the Rekon 4 being my second favourite. However, now I have two different versions of the Rekon 4. We have the original one, which was called the Rekon 4 LR, or long range. That is more of the dead cat style layout, has motors and props really designed for efficiency and longer ranges, and it also has things like the GPS and the buzzer at the back, so that you have things like the GPS return to home. Looks like Rekon, which is actually Rekon FPV, is Dave C, very talented designer working with HGLRC. Looks like they've decided to bring out this version, which is called the Rekon4 FR, or Freestyle Edition. And immediately you can see they've made some pretty substantial differences. So I thought in this one I'd kind of go through what is different between the two, so you can have a think about what the things that are interesting to you are if you're looking at getting a Rekon 4, and go through how it flies, all the usual stuff. First of all, let me go through what is different between this model and the previous Rekon 4 LR. First of all, the motors have been changed from a 1404 to a 1804 motor, so that should give it a little bit more grunt, much better for freestyle and aggressive flying. On the original Rekon 4 LR long range version, they used a stack rather than a single all-in-one board, which is on this new model. It means there's an awful lot more room inside this frame using the all-in-one flight controller and ESC setup. Design of the frame is different. There are lots of things in common, but the long range version, as you saw, is more of a dead cat design. This version is more of a hybrid X, or I'd probably call it a compressed X design, which is kind of more suited for freestyle flying. Props on this are Gemfan 4023 for this freestyle version. On the long range version they were 4024, so they're practically the same, but the tune is slightly different on this model as well to support the more aggressive freestyle flying. And whereas with a long range version you could kind of push it with a lithium ion battery, this is designed to pull a little bit more power to support that kind of more aggressive flying style, so this really should be used with a lithium ion battery. So while I show you how it comes in the box, let me go through the specs. So again, this is the Rekon 4 FR version. So it's a 4-inch frame, 180mm wheelbase. So it's 180mm by 140mm, so that slightly compressed X. Inside is a Zeus 25 all-in-one 3 to 6S flight controller. Makes the build incredibly neat. Standard size, and it is an F7 based flight controller, which means that this thing can run lots and lots of the Betaflight stuff turned on and not even break a sweat. At the back, they've gone for a Zeus Nano 350mW VTX. That'll support PIT 2500, 200 and 350mW. I really like these Zeus Nanos. I've got them in lots of different things, including some sub 250 gram planes, and they just work. I really like the way it's laid out. It's mounted on a little stalk so that the receiver actually sits below it. At the front is a Caddx Rattle 2 camera. That's a 1200 TVL line CMOS camera, standard size. And then the motors, as I've already mentioned, are slightly different on this. These are Rekon branded 1804 3500 kV motors, and this will support 3 and 4S on this particular one. And again, spinning those 4-inch props. And those are Gemfan 4023 4-inch 3-bladed propellers, and you get 2 sets in the box, which I am a fan of. So a quick look round the Betaflight settings. I'm not going to go too much into this. A lot of the quads seem to be set up very similarly these days. The tune's the only big difference, and I've got the dump and diff available in the link below if you want to go and have a look. But let's have a quick mooch through. Ports, very little setup. We've got tramp set up for the VTX at the back, but that's it really. Lots of UARTs here, none of which are being used. Configuration, motor direction is reversed, which seems to be pretty standard on the Rekon stuff. D-Shot 600, 8K gyro and PID loop frequencies, but it's an F7, so it's just 1 or 2%. Nothing, air mode isn't turned on by default, interestingly, neither is the D-Shock beat configuration. That is one thing that would have been nice in this model, even though they've kind of stripped it down, is putting a beeper in here just so you can find the thing when it lands in the grass. Power and battery look like that. Failsafe is set to drop. PID tuning, again, I refer you to the dump and diff below if you want to have a look at what the rate profile and everything's set up, but rate profile looks pretty standard. Modes, by default, there isn't an awful lot set up. If I just hide unused modes so we can see everything, there's only an arming, angle and air mode set up, so you're definitely going to have to connect and play with this stuff. It's all set by default to auxiliary 1 on mine, so go in there and change it. Also, come in the on-screen display stuff and move things around. This layout isn't particularly optimal in my humble opinion, so I'm going to move them around to suit how I like to fly. Video transmitter table is all set up, so I'll do the dump and diff below. So, with all that said, let's go to the field and let me show you some flight footage and talk about what it's actually like to fly. The short version is it flies exceptionally well. Now I'm flying it with a really lightweight 1100 mAh 4S battery, and I'm flying it in quite a spirited way, and I'm getting about 6 minutes from it. So if you use a slightly larger battery, a 1300, you'll get slightly more. But I would reckon on about 5 or 6 minutes flight time out of an 1100 mAh or 1300 mAh battery. There is a ridiculous amount of power in this. I am loving flying it without an action camera installed, just hooting around and having fun. It's hovering at about 16 to 18% throttle with that lighter 1100 mAh battery and without an action camera. So there is more than enough power in here to add an action camera on here, a skeletonized GoPro or something similar, or even probably get away with a full-size GoPro with the amount of oomph that this has got. And that's thanks to those bigger motors and some of the tweaks that's been made to the setup compared to something like the Rekon 4 long range. Tune is smooth and a huge amount of fun to fly. No nasty surprises, no kind of nasty flicks or rolls or judders or anything hooting around, and the camera performance is what you'd expect from this camera. It's clear with great views and good colour reproduction. It does feel like a much larger model in flight. I know that's something that Dave C was aiming for with this, give a 5-inch feel, and it's very easy to forget that this is only a 4-inch quadcopter. However, the thing that will give it away is going to be the reduction in noise. This is very quiet in flight. You can hear it when you go full throttle, you have the high whine as you punch out, but apart from that, when you're cruising around, once it's a couple of hundred yards away from you, you really can't hear it. And it's just pure freestyle fun with none of the messing about with things like GPS and other stuff. Now there's a shed load to like on this model. It's well built with lots of room in the frame for cooling, so things don't get too warm even on hot summer days. Everything is well put together, and I like the soft mounts and all the really nice soldering that's been done inside. As usual, it's been put together with a lot of care and attention by somebody who actually has been trained. Cute touches like the mounting for the crossfire antenna at the back, which absolutely gets the thumbs up from me. However, having some kind of swivel antenna would also be nicer to mount the antenna vertical. It just gives a much better reception when you get a little bit further out. Changes to those motors and the tune do make it feel far more responsive than its longer range version, and there is absolutely tons of power. Only a couple of things to draw your attention to with this. It's a cracking little model. You probably spotted one in the FPV footage, and that is that the current, the amp draw out of the battery is just completely out of whack. I'm actually using the right settings for the flight controller, but something weird's going on. I'm just getting a massive overreading. I have reported that back to HGLRC, but I think this was a review unit, so I have made them aware of that. There isn't a buzzer on here. It would be nice to put one on. If you're getting one, I'd be tempted to add one into your build because it's a smaller model, particularly in the northern hemisphere anyway. It's summer. If you land in anything but really short grass, it just disappears. And I also would have liked to see a little bit more thought about room for a larger pack. The top deck, particularly when you have an action camera on the top deck, it's really cramped. There is very small amount of room on here. It'll be nice in future to also have the ability to mount the battery below if you really need to, if you want a slightly bigger battery for slightly longer flight times. But in summary, this is another lovely 4-inch model from Dave C that's taken the excellent little Rekon4 FR and tweaked it for a more aggressive, speedy flying style. This is more my cup of tea than the Race Whoop 30 that I looked at recently. This flies great and goes like stink, but isn't making a lot of noise while it does it, so you can fly it in places that you wouldn't get away with a powerful 5-inch quad. This is recommended. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organised into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.